I'm Russell Conte with Sewpbox Productions. Today I'd like to share some of my favorite tips and tricks for quilting. Without further ado, let's get right to it. First things first, make certain you're using the right type of needle and the right size of needle. For piecing, I like to use a sharp needle, size 70, because the fabric is really lightweight. It works really well and it pierces those fibers quite nicely. Use the correct stitch length for your fabric. That's my second tip. Make certain that it's not too long, not too short. For my purposes, I like to use a 2mm stitch length. My next tip, value is more important than color when you're picking fabric or you're picking thread color. So if I'm working with a quilt top, I'm going to pick lights, mediums, and darks. Many people tend to gravitate toward a medium color. I want to make certain I get a nice variation of all those. So I have a good variation of color in the quilt. Next tip, when you get ready to sew, don't watch the needle. Watch in front of the needle or watch your seam allowance line. If you're watching the needle, by the time you've gotten there, you've already made a mistake and you have no chance to correct for it. So always watch your seam allowance and watch ever so slightly in front of it, maybe a half of an inch to an inch in front of it before you get there. When you're cutting strips for fabric, don't rely on the marks on the mat for precision. Use the marks on the ruler exclusively. You'll find much better success when you're cutting your strips. In fact, it's even better to turn your mat over and use the other side. Patience. Don't rush through it. Do all your cutting at one time, do all your segment sewing at one time, do all your sub-cutting at one time, piece all your blocks at another time, and as much as possible, do all your quilting at one time. You'll have much better results. When you get ready to press your seam allowances, there's different schools of thought on this. I like to press my seam allowance in one direction. My rule for pressing seam allowances, I press toward the dark or the path of least resistance. So what that means is if I got multiple seam allowances on one piece of fabric and no seam allowances on the other one, I'm going to press toward the fabric that has fewer seam allowances. Or I'm going to press toward the dark. However, again, regardless of whether or not it's light or dark, the path of least resistance wins. For further tips and tricks, check out babylock.com. See you there!